AI-powered RevOps, where the learning never stops. Hosted by Sandy Robinson, she's leveling up your ops. From data to deals, she reveals how AI really pops. Real talk, real playbooks, no fluff, just jaw drop. So plug in, turn it up, let the insights flow. You're tuned to AI-powered RevOps. Now let's start the show.
Welcome back to AI-powered RevOps. Today I'm joined by Oscar Armas-Luy. Oscar is the Vice President of Revenue Operations at Garner Health. He's known for blending data, systems, and GTM execution. Lately, he's been busy scaling the RevOps engine and building out the team. Today, we're digging into how AI can turn messy revenue signals into decisions your teams can actually trust. If you want practical playbooks, not hype, this one's for you. All right, Oscar, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sandy.
Awesome. Well, I've known you for a while. I really appreciate you jumping on here. We've been together on different speaking circuits and things like that. But can you tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you got into RevOps?
Yeah, so what I think is unique about me is that I've done RevOps in a number of different settings, different size companies. So I've done it at publicly traded companies, private equity-backed companies, and now a couple of hyper-growth startups. In terms of my background, I studied business and computer science. And like everyone else, I kind of just fell into RevOps. Someone had called me with an opportunity to start as an analyst, and I worked my way up. And currently, I'm leading revenue operations at Garner Health, whose mission is to transform the healthcare economy.
That's exciting. And it's interesting because you have folks that come from the sales side, right, in RevOps, and then a lot of folks from the computer science, the data side, even the finance side. And I'm seeing that having that background these days is much more advantageous. So I look forward to diving in a little bit there on your background. But quick question for you. Can you tell the audience maybe a personal interest that your work friends might not know about you to get to know you a little better?
Sure, I'll give you a fun fact. So, growing up, our house was decorated for Christmas year round. My grandma loved Christmas, so she had the Christmas tree, the lights, everything year round. So, that's why I still have my happy holiday mug today. It's my favorite holiday.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Keeping the lights up, all of that stuff. I don't know why the HOAs make you take them down. So I like it. I'm with you there. So how did AI is, obviously it's been around for a long time, but we have this accelerated, advent of AI and how things are being used, especially in RevOps. Everybody's in different places on the adoption curve on this, right? So how did you get started using AI, even if not in RevOps, in your personal life, and how that applies to RevOps?
Yeah, so I actually started with AI in an academic setting. And so through my coursework, right, I really focused on taking some of the more math heavy courses and some of these like cutting edge AI courses. And here's the unique thing, which is that throughout the coursework, we basically ended up building our way through the history of AI, right? So we started with some of the seminal papers in AI, like from back in the 60s, that were really simple, like classification models, handwriting, like plant classification, all the way to the modern LLMs like ChatGPT. And I think the unique insight that that gave me is that things that we as humans consider to be very complicated or very highbrow usually have some type of simple underlying structure. And so, what that means practically is that a lot of times these models or these AI tools can understand and intuit a lot more than we give them credit for.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that because I like the idea of learning the history. How do you think that would benefit other folks who are diving in right now?
Yeah, I think it's the idea that at the end of the day, these are pattern machines. I think the key insight of ChatGPT, which is a little hard to wrap your head around, is that language has patterns, right? We tend to think of language and writing and speaking as very creative endeavors, but at the end of the day, there's clear mathematical patterns behind these things. And so when you see the really simple building blocks of how someone can turn like pixels on a screen, if you draw a 9 or a 7 into a pattern that tells you what number they're trying to communicate, just kind of keeping in the back of your mind that that's all ChatGPT or any of these other LLMs are doing can give you a different way to look at the sort of magic.
Yeah, that's a good way of breaking it down. And I think about my son who is in a college. He's 14 actually, but he's taking the, computer science classes, coding classes, and, he's really jumping into Claude because he knows some basic coding. He's taken, 101, 102 classes, and now that's really, helping to amplify things for him. So having that coding background, I think, is a big advantage as well.
Definitely agree. And that's so cool that he's able to do it with Claude available.
Yes, yes, yes. Although, yeah, well, that's another subject for another time. So, what are you working on now? Tell us a little bit about 2026. What are the big things you're doing over at Garner?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we have going on our RevOps team is reporting for 2026. And so we are trying to be very intentional in not participating in metrics tourism or reporting for reporting's sake. And so what we
Wait,
really,
wait, wait,
really,
wait, wait,
yeah,
wait. Say that again. Metrics tourism.
yes. So metrics
Ah,
tourism, that's my term for like I feel like in RevOps, we always get asked, or we always want to build like dashboards that are just like, oh, like this would be interesting to see, or like this would be a cool data point. Like, let's just have it. Um, and the reason I call it metrics tourism is because, yes, that stuff often is interesting. But what's going to drive your results is really what is your growth machine? And then what is the telemetry? What are the inputs, outputs of that growth machine? And how can you manage them? So my goal for this part of the year has been how do we get our reporting in place so that it's only those inputs, outputs in the machine and we can really manage what matters.
I love that. I mean, it's so true though, because everybody wants a dashboard and everybody comes to RevOps and I need this and I need that. Why don't we have this in here? But at the end of the day, what really matters. And I just love this. I think we need to like really coin that as an official definition of, metrics tourism. That is that's a new one. I'm bringing that back. I hope I can steal that from you because I like that one.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
we heard it here first.
but it's great. I mean, it gives you some street cred too, right? You're pushing back and say like, do you really want that, or like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? What really ends at the end of the day matters? How does this tie to our blueprint or whatever our KPIs for the quarter are and things like that? So,
Agreed.
um,
And I think the big thing is like a lot of people tend to make what I consider an error, which is like they say, well, what's the harm in having an additional dashboard or what's the harm in having some more data? I think the key harm is that our brains just can't handle that many numbers, that many things to worry about, and you can't manage to it. So I think to your point, really staying laser focused frees up the bandwidth so that we can actually move those.
so how are you using AI to build out these dashboards? Feel free to dive in a little bit of into the weeds as well, but
Yeah.
that would be really helpful, I think.
Yeah, so the biggest thing we're doing with AI is really using it to up level our spreadsheet game.
Mhm.
So all of these spreadsheet platforms, whether it be Google or Microsoft or any of the other like more new vendors out there, they all allow you to write some type of code on top of their spreadsheets, right? I don't know what Microsoft is doing nowadays, but what they had back in the day was VBA. There's Google Apps Script, you name it. And so what we're really trying to do is use the foundation models like Claude, like ChatGPT, like Gemini to build and really supercharge our spreadsheets. So what does this mean? This means that we can get around some of the limitations of like Salesforce dashboarding or other dashboarding programs by really just trying to build our own dashboarding using code in these spreadsheets. Um, the biggest thing here that you accomplish is that when you try to code with AI, like you were talking, a lot of times it'll give you like a Python script or something, and you're like, okay, like now what do I do with this? Like,
Right.
by building on a spreadsheet, it's like already packaged. You could deploy it. It's a thing people and all of us know how to use.
So are you using Google Sheets to do that with Gemini?
Yeah, so we use Google Sheets, we use Gemini, and we use Google Apps Script. Um,
Okay.
and so with Google Apps Script, we get plugged in, we get connected to Salesforce or any of our other systems through like the APIs. And then from a logic perspective, right, we try to do as much logic as possible using the cells and the formulas that we're all used to. But where those things don't work or don't meet our needs, that's when we're jumping into Gemini and saying, hey, we need some code to do this. And what that actually lets you do is lets you define like your own functions that you can call in the spreadsheet. It lets you like put things on a schedule if you want to refresh it each night, things like that.
Love it. So do you have like people on your team? Like, do you have people that are accountable specifically for some of these spreadsheets? Like, how is that deployed on your team?
Yeah, so we do not have any engineers on the team.
Mhm.
We're all business people. We're all sort of RevOps pros or from RevOps adjacent backgrounds. And what we do is based on whoever owns sort of that business area, they're also responsible for all their reporting.
Okay.
So they're responsible for making sure that the spreadsheet's set up right, that it gives them the output they need. And of course, if they get stuck or they get not getting something useful from Gemini, they can always ask for help. And usually someone else on the team has a tip or a trick for them.
Nice, nice. So you guys are managing it yourself, and you're only crying uncle if you need some help
Yes.
that kind of goes beyond the bounds of the person who owns it and their technical capabilities.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. So how has this been adopted over there? How have the team members been, receiving everything that you're doing around AI?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, I think what was really key was like showing the art of the possible. So I started with one really high profile, really complicated dashboard that we were having issues with. So we had a dashboard which someone was updating every week manually, and the update took like 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And even though that person did their best, tried their hardest, like the thing was just so complicated that inevitably there'd always be like little errors on it that someone would catch. And so I'm like, okay, we have this big beast. Like, how can we start using automation and AI to make this easier? And so I really just got in the tank with Gemini, with ChatGPT. I actually used two models, and got in the tank on automating this one thing, right? And so the two things that I had in mind are how do I show what's possible, but also how do I create as much like reusable building blocks that people can steal? And so I focused really hard on that. And then the adoption flowed from there, right? So once people saw what we were able to do and that I was, able to do it somewhat easily, then the rest of the team was jumping on to automate their stuff. We had other departments asking questions, and it just went from there.
I love it. I love it. And that really hits on two things. One, you're freeing up resources, right? That are otherwise spending hours upon hours to do that every single week. But two, you are increasing the quality because you're reducing the potential human errors that you might have in that. Now, obviously things can break and things like that, but I remember years and years ago, we would get a report from corporate, and the joke amongst the managers, and again, this is like several companies ago, the joke from the other managers was like, just wait till like the second or third version comes out of the report because they're going to be wrong. So we would like
Yeah,
literally have bets amongst each other and delete, the first two, not even open them. And so we're in a world where we shouldn't be doing those things manually, right? And the only manual side would be to build the initial what it is we're looking for, and then how do you automate it? So, but I like that because you're showing the value. It's helping the users, and they're upping their game, right? So you're doing everybody a favor for their careers by forcing them to do these sort of activities, I think.
definitely. Totally agreed.
So, eh, we think of the evolution of AI and this rapid transformation, even literally month by month. I'm trying to post these podcasts like within 2 weeks because I think they start to become, uh, irrelevant if you wait too long, right? Because things are changing. So, how has the evolution of AI really just even in the last year or so changed your day to day motion?
Yeah, so a year ago, if you asked me, like, what was I doing with AI? Basically, I would be working on a project and I'd have very specific points in the project where I said, oh, AI can help me with this one task. Let me go jump in, give it this task with no context and see what it gives me. And then I kind of just carry on my day, sometimes useful, sometimes not. What we've been doing the past couple months is really leaning into like these Pro series models. So now you have ChatGPT Pro, Gemini Pro. I'm sure the other vendors have them as well. And what I find is that you can now start to use them at different levels. So, like, I'm using Gemini Pro at the inception of a project to help plan for what do we need to do? What's the best way to achieve it? What's like the best way to organize this? down at the specific task level, like I was before, but then also to plan out, okay, like how is this going to connect? How am I going to operationalize this? How am I going to test this sort of thing? And so I think with the smarter models that have the bigger context windows, we've really had to change from thinking of this as like someone that's going to help on individual tasks to really a thought partner throughout the entire life cycle of the project.
That's huge, and I can relate to that. I'm glad you said that because there's the technical building aspect of RevOps, right? Like how are you building out agents and automating spreadsheets and stuff like that. But then there's the strategic side. And to not be doing something like that, I think leaders are going to become quickly irrelevant. So it doesn't mean it's not your idea. It's how are you working, like almost like with your own coach, right? I love that you brought that up because I think starting there is a great way to really formulate your plan, formulate what are the subsequent actions, what potential pushback might you get from leaders, right? I mean, have you tried that sort of thing
Yeah,
when you're working through things?
you're spot on. So, like, I love to use the deep research feature. I love to use it for kind of three things. Like, one, like, when I'm not told, like, when I have a contrarian idea that I want to pressure test, like something uncommon or something that goes against the mold. Um, Two, when I go on like vendor negotiations, right? Um, when you look at those two buckets, like what I do is I usually put them into deep research and I'm like, analyze this from their perspective, analyze it from a game theory perspective, analyze it from a finance perspective. And what it ends up doing is producing like a 15-page document that I'll print out and I'll read. And to be frank, it's not like there's anything in that doc that I'm like, oh, like I should use this. Like it's more like it gets the creative juices flowing. And I'm like, oh, I didn't really think about it this way. Here's what I'm going to do now that you point that out, sort of thing.
That and I just want to double down on that because confirmation bias is a thing, right? So it's real easy, especially as your chat GPT gets to know you. It tells you things you like to hear, right? So those prompts are important in avoiding confirmation bias and bringing those opposing viewpoints. How would a client, view this, or how would my boss take
Yeah.
this, and what might they push back on?
I'll give you something fun that you made me think of because I think you're so right. So I use ChatGPT on my phone to choose wine. So
Okay.
every time I go to a restaurant, because I'm pretty picky, I have a ChatGPT conversation where I take a picture of the menu and I said, what wine would I like? Um, and I started getting like a couple of dud recommendations in a row. So I just added one line to the prompt, which was, if you don't see anything I'll like, don't recommend anything. And when I added that and it started saying like, oh yeah, there's nothing on this menu for you, like the results just like skyrocketed. Is that one line?
I like it. I mean, that's true. And even asking to create a prompt for you based on which
Yeah,
model you're using. So I started doing that for my images for this podcast. So first I was using Nana Banana. So I went to ChatGPT and I'm like, write me a prompt. I want to create a podcast image here. So I had it write me a prompt and I brought it over there. So those are the kind of things that I think you can, as you're drilling down on it, get the result that you're looking for. But you do have to be careful. But I like that wine trick. That's a good one.
yeah.
So, in terms of leadership, what expectations do you have or are set upon you from leadership when it comes to AI or just RevOps in general?
Yeah, I mean, kind of boring answer, right? AI is like any tool. So, like, your leaders are always going to expect you to get results. And, if you're running a budget, to get essentially good return on your budget or reasonable return on your budget. So, I would say nothing has really changed. AI is just what we're using to accelerate the results that our leaders already expect of us.
Yeah, and I think that's a good answer, and I think that's great in your world. I mean, not every company is like that, so I think you're definitely very fortunate to have that ability to pick the tools and to deploy in the way that you need to deploy them. Because I agree, it's a means to the end, right? At the end of the day, it should be about results. That ties back to revenue.
Hmm.
And it ties back to where, like you said at the beginning, what are the metrics that matter, right? We're not doing metrics tourism. So if you're focusing in on those things, and again, my new favorite thing, if you're focusing on those things, it really shouldn't be an objection to your leadership that you want to try something. So
Yeah, definitely fortunate, right? And like, I think there's probably two other camps, right? Like, there's the camp of people that know that AI would really accelerate some result, but they can't get the funding or the authorization to use it. And I think that's tough, right? It's like getting anything approved. You got to kind of figure out who the players are, play the game. But then
mhm.
there's also the opposite camp, which is like you got the CEO, like, I want everybody using AI 3 hours a day kind of thing. And
Yeah,
you're like, well, how? Um,
yeah.
so I get it. We're all in different environments. It's
Yeah,
how you navigate it.
yeah. And but I mean, you bring up a good point in terms of, if CEO says, hey, everybody should be doing this, but then you really need to befriend your infosec team, right? And how does that work in your organization, and how can you safely use these tools and get that kind of blessing there? I think is something also that comes up for people. Like, you may have the part of the C suite over here and the other part going, whoa, we can't do this. And you're in the middle, like, hey guys, how can we all be friends?
Yeah, definitely, right. And I always say to people, like, I know my AI policy like front and back. Like, you got to comply with the thing, but hopefully they don't make it too difficult for you.
Yeah, yeah. So, in terms of folks that are trying to dive in, get started, um, how do you recommend they start in leveraging AI?
Yeah, so something I don't agree with is a lot of people like talk about AI like replacing busy work or essentially replacing like something you're already doing. I wouldn't see it that way. Like, I believe the best way to start is where AI can expand your capabilities. And so that really falls in two buckets for me. It's things that you didn't know how to do, right? So maybe you don't know how to do certain things in spreadsheets, or you don't know how to do certain things with your tools, right? Things you didn't know how to do, or things that were impractical to do, right? So there's certain models, certain experiments, certain things that like I'd be like, oh, like that'd be cool to do, but it would have taken me like 15 hours to do it. Whereas now with AI, it takes you 30 seconds. So think about where you can expand your sort of competencies and where you can expand things that would have been impractical before, and just focusing on doing those and leveraging AI to do those can usually take you to a really good spot quickly.
Yep. Keeping it simple, right? Just like everything else. So don't create a new process, a new thing. Just start with the basics. Is
Yeah,
really what I'm hearing you say.
yeah.
Are you using any tools that are like within some of the applications, like CRM? Like, I don't know if you're using Salesforce or HubSpot, or any of the other 5,000 million tools that are out there. Is there anything in particular you want to hit on in terms of using with the sales teams or marketing teams, anything like that you're finding success with?
Yeah, I don't want to hit on any specific tools. What I'll hit on as an insight is like pretty much all of our vendors have introduced some level of AI.
Hmm.
Um, and what I have found is that nothing really works well out of the box. You have to do a lot of work to basically build the business process around it and then calibrate expectations around it. And also, now I'm getting in like hot take territory. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of these features, I think, were built because they're flashy, not because anybody actually wanted them. And so I think constantly reaffirming with your teams, like, is this something we actually want to do? Like, is this actually helping us, or is it just cool? Um,
Hmm.
I think those are the keys to success.
Yeah, the shiny objects, right? Like, I get hit frequently from the team, like, hey, we should try this tool or this tool or this feature. And yeah, I mean, it's just like anything else. You can't be chasing every shiny object. And I do think a lot of vendors were just trying to check the box, right? Like, yeah, we have a chat bot, we have this extra feature. And some of them are great if, like you said, to your point, if you set them up well. But it can also get messy, right? If you have 15 different, ask me this question set up within your tech stack, you start to, potentially get different answers and, creating additional problems.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think there is a difference between like things you want to support organizationally versus things you're making available. And what I mean by that is like you can design organizational processes or metrics or expectations that apply to the whole team using one of these AI features. But there's also going to be certain AI features we have that, like, I just know I have 3 reps that use those things like every day and everybody else doesn't care for them. That's okay too, right? We don't want to stop their creativity. Like, some people are just really good that way. And of course, if we learn something from them where they really unlock something that we didn't think of course, we'll propagate that throughout the team and turn it into something we support organizational.
I like that. I like that. Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, like I got one individual on our team uses Notion AI like for everything in ways that I had never even thought of it. So I'm like, you do you. Like I don't know the first thing about this, but you do you. Like keep it going. Like you're obviously getting some results. And so now we've actually started to look at, okay, how do we take what this individual is doing with Notion AI and train everybody else to do it, because it's a business process everybody's doing. He's just doing it a lot faster and better.
That's I love that. And I like, especially this goes back to like standard adoption rules 101, right? If you have somebody who really takes off with it, they're going to be able to lead the team, help influence, and it makes your life a lot easier too, in terms of
Definitely.
training and having automatically having your subject matter expert for that, right?
Yeah, and ideas too. I mean, these folks think of things that I would have never thought of.
Yeah, it is I've got somebody that we recently brought in, and he's working through how to put together, summaries for our clients, right? And diving into what are their biggest problems and things like that. So he's kind of tasked with figuring that out, leveraging AI for the team, and then we'll work on how we scale it from there. So it's something that he's into. So I was like, hey, why don't you run with this, see what you come up with, bring it back, and let's roll it out to the team once we do that.
Yeah.
So I like kind of, especially if people have a passion about it, it can really help them develop whatever their career path might be and put them in a position where they're in future leader positions at the company or other places. So I just really, I think that's a great way to look at it, and great that you're embracing that as a leader, right? So I know we all like sometimes cringe when they're like, oh, there's this new tool, right? That you start thinking about, oh, how am I going to put this in with everything else? But I think you raise a really good point that we should really listen, especially if somebody's passionate about it.
Yeah, I love that, right? It's a win-win. And like the biggest piece of guidance I'll have, like sort of the caveat to what I just said, is like um doing things manually has a very high execution risk. Doing things with AI has a very high design risk. And what I mean by that is like the AI is probably not going to make like tactical mistakes the same way a human might, but if you design the thing in a way that's suboptimal, it's going to like propagate that suboptimal design to the nth power. And so like the caveat to what I say is like I'll let people do whatever they want, but like you got to do it within sort of a limited scope, right? If I'm not protecting the organization from potentially
Right.
one person's idea that they haven't really thought of all the implications, then I'm not doing my job either.
Right, right. Yeah, there has to be the safeguards and some level of vetting of whatever the tool is. You can't
Yes.
just go out and get rogue tools. So
Yep.
yes, that's been something that, obviously in smaller startups is a bigger problem. We're at the point where we're scaling and we've kind of locked everything down. So we are in that world now. So I love it. So let's talk. I've got some rapid fire questions
All
here,
right.
and I did some digging on what RevOps leaders are asking about AI. And again, the whole concept of this podcast is to support people in RevOps and enablement who are at varying degrees of the adoption curve and provide, other folks that are practitioners diving into this stuff. So I wanted to see what people were asking out there. So I'm asking every guest these questions. So you
Yeah.
ready to roll?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right. So, what's the very first place you tell a RevOps team to start with AI?
Google Apps Script or Excel VBA, it's so powerful to code on top of spreadsheets and it's easy.
Great. Great. Is RevOps data actually AI ready today, or are most teams just automating garbage?
Yeah, even bad data can reveal truths that are helpful. So I would say, I don't know, but it's critical not to make perfect the enemy of good.
I like that. That's a great saying. So, and it does go back to you have to start with data as your foundation, right?
Hmm.
But I like that idea of it can reveal truths and tell you that you have bad data.
Definitely.
What's one AI use case in RevOps you've seen actually work in the real world?
Yeah, call coaching. So not call summaries, but call coaching. What I find is that the coaching is pretty good. And even if you disagree with the coaching, it can help you build self awareness and then you make your own adjustments.
Okay, side question from that. What are you using for call coaching?
Yeah, so we use Chorus for our call recording. And then what we do is we essentially download the transcript and then we give it to Gemini with a rubric and say, score this call.
Hmm, cool. I like it. All right, let's go to the next one. How do you measure real ROI from AI in RevOps?
Yeah, the same way we measure ROI of any program, we look at what's it contributing to growth, what's it contributing to efficiency.
Great words to live by. Will AI replace RevOps, or will RevOps leaders who use AI replace those who don't?
I don't think AI will replace people in any field. It will just change what's expected of them.
Mm, mm. That's really something to think about because you as a leader, and it's kind of like a softball question, right? There's you really, it's just the world that we're in, right? So I would love to know any final closing thoughts that you have, anything you would like to leave the audience with.
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, my closing thought is kind of twofold. Like, one, these things are so powerful. You can do so much to expand your own thinking and your own creativity, but also, like, the best way is just to get in there, experiment, try different things. Like, unlike people, they'll work with you as long as you want. And, like, if you go down a weird path, you just hit new chat and start over. Like, you can only go up.
I like that. I like that. Well, this has been great. I mean, I really appreciate you joining the podcast. I'm, again, really passionate about this, getting information from folks that are actually doing this out there in the world and getting different perspectives. So thank you so much for joining, Oscar. I'm sure I will see you soon out there.
Yeah.
And this,
Yeah, this was fun.
awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been another episode of AI Powered RevOps. Please tune in for the next one. Take care.